Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
Introducing Carvana Value Tracker, where you can track your car's value over time and learn what's driving it. It might make you excited.
Whoa, didn't know my car was valued this high.
It might make you nervous.
Uh-oh, market's flooded. My car's value just dipped 2.3%.
It might make you optimistic.
Our low mileage is paying off. Our value's up.
And it might make you realistic.
Car prices haven't gone up in a couple weeks. Maybe it's time to sell.
But it will definitely make you an expert on your car's value. Carvana Value Tracker. Visit Carvana.com to start tracking your car's value today.
Educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. So, here's what I would like to speak about today. As we end the year, I would like for us to reflect on what we have learned, how we have grown, how we will implement what we have learned in the new year. So here's something that I've learned about myself. I've learned that once I sit down and concentrate on one thing at a time, the objective will be accomplished in a lot shorter time than I would have imagined. Sometimes I have overanalyzed the situation and thinking that whatever it might be needs more time than I have allowed or I would be able to allow for that objective to be achieved. So I'll give you an example. I have taken the time to record a lot of shows. I've taken the time to do interviews. One of the things that I realized in interviewing guests that I can create the parameters as long as I understand what I'm looking for. I've also learned that in those parameters comes the time that is required to do the research. Maurice, what are you talking about? It sounds like you're talking in circles. No, I'm not. So if I would take the time if I have a guest, if I would take the time to do the research on that, so that can take a long time, whether I'm listening to 2 or 3 episodes for those guests and getting their background, hearing their story, learning about their upbringing and how it might influence them to where they are today, to, their corporate America or their corporate ladder climb, if you will, not just corporate America, but their corporate climb, and how that might influence where they are today. Now, let's also take a look at that. There are some that I've interviewed where they did not have that corporate America or corporate mindset ladder to climb because of other opportunities they might have come across. So, for an example, one individual, he didn't do that, even though he might have been raised and grew up in a bad situation, what we would consider a bad situation or a rough situation. he never experienced it because he was such a grinder that he never had to touch corporate America because he was always in I'm a salesperson mode. So that's the other part that I've learned. That I may be a better salesperson than I had given myself credit for. Sometimes we tell ourselves that we can't do, that we can't achieve, that we aren't very good at speaking. But what other things do you have going for you that can help you sell? For me, it's my personality, how I come off, how I treat people, how I approach the situation. And again, am I doing my research enough so when I do speak that I am intelligent enough to handle the situation? A lot of times we don't know that. A lot of times we don't do that. A lot of times we're not prepared because we're too nervous about the work that comes with that. But if we're prepared, if we are educated enough, whether we're reading books or articles or blogs, even though some people may encourage you not to read stuff on social media news, but wherever you might be able to get some information from, find a way to get educated about any particular topic. And find out once you try to sell yourself in any and everything, I can almost guarantee that you might be able to work what you might have read or learned into that situation or conversation. It may not be directly say, for an example, I just read The Three Little Pigs or, Cat in the Hat something, whatever. So you might not go to the individual and say, well, I like green eggs and ham. But the situation may be, have you considered what may color green eggs and ham? And I understand what it takes because I'm a baker, and I understand that if I use this dye or if I understand that maybe sitting in an aluminum pan long enough or something like that could turn an object green, whatever it might be, you might be able to associate it in a manner or a way that someone will be able to understand it or may be intrigued by the analogy, the comparison, the similarities, the contrast, whatever it might be. Find a creative way to work it out. So these are some of the things that I've learned that as long as I sit down and focus on my task and not belabor it by overanalyzing it, it will be done in a lot less time than I thought. Also, understanding how much research and education is required in order to sell something. So as I stated a few moments ago, I believe I'm a better salesperson than I had imagined based off of me being able to use word associations or idea associations from other places or whatever. And now I have the information to compare and contrast to my services or my products or whatever it might be. And maybe if it's not mine, but someone else's. So are you being educated enough to get to that point? And lastly, the one thing I learned was to be present. A lot of times we can be in a situation or an area or a room where we could be there, but we're not always present in the situation. And sometimes things can go over our heads and we hear half of the information. Now we want to respond to sound educated, but we only responded to half of the situation and not knowing the whole story. That's something that I've learned based off of doing these interviews and speaking to these individuals, of saying, you know, as I'm listening to you speak, I'm pulling out key information as you're speaking that can turn the tide of the interview and maybe take it in a direction that it may or may not, you may not want it to go, or you did want it to go, but you needed to pull something out specifically that pointed to the direction you wanted to get to. So are you present, or are you too caught up in your phone? Too caught up in, you know, I'm gonna be honest with you, caught up in a painting or a picture that's on the wall. Hey, you know what? Those colors look so beautiful. So that means I'm no longer present in the situation that I'm in. So I encourage each and every one of you to sit down with a book and just jot down what you might have learned this past year. And reflect on that. Find out how you can improve on some of those things that you've learned to take that new skill into the next stage of your life, being the new calendar year. I thank you very much for listening. Hope you have learned something as well this year. I wish you all the success, and please enjoy 21 days of business brilliance. Countdown to success of 2024. Thank you very much for listening today.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?
Wells Fargo presents one of the surest ways to grow your money. A Wells Fargo CD account, where you can earn a 5.00% annual percentage yield on an 11-month term with a minimum opening deposit of $5,000. Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/CD rates to open a CD account and start growing your savings with us.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.